If you're looking for a durable, waterproof and attractive DIY flooring option for your bathroom, then vinyl plank flooring is a really good option, and it's one that you can easily install yourself. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step guide to installing vinyl plank flooring. We're doing it in our bathroom, but actually you can put this flooring anywhere in your house and the same method would apply. Let's get into it. So before we begin, you'll need to gather all your materials and your tools. So of course you'll need some vinyl plank flooring. I'll put some more links down below to options for different products. You'll need some spacers, a utility knife or a vinyl flooring cutter, measuring tape, a square, underlayment possibly if you need it depending on your actual vinyl flooring, tapping block, pencil and straight edge, rubber mallet, and don't forget your PPE. So how does vinyl plank flooring actually work? Before we get into how to lay it, let's just quickly talk about how it works. And it's basically a board system that slots together via a tongue and groove method. There's no adhesive, it's not stuck to the floor, you're not attaching it to the floor. It just sits on top of the floor as one overall weight. And as long as you get it right when you lay it, it will sit in place. Now, when it comes to laying the floor, it's important to remember to stagger your boards. You wouldn't just line them all up in a row, that would look strange. So it's partly about aesthetics. You're trying to perhaps go for that authentic wooden floor look. Actually, if you didn't know this, what vinyl plank flooring is it's a picture of the flooring it wants to be, whether or not that's a tile or stone or wood. And that's then on top of these boards here. So it looks very authentic, but it isn't actually wood or stone. Now, of course, partly you need to do that. You need to ensure that you stagger them to make sure that you make it look nice, but also in the same way as you wouldn't build a brick wall by just stacking all of those bricks on top of each other, you need to stagger them to give the floor overall stability. Now, no matter what the shape and size of the room where you're laying your planks, because you need to stagger them in that way, you will definitely need to do some cuts. Now, in theory, these can be done just using a knife and a straight edge like this, and you can just score the boards and then snap them. In reality, this is actually quite hard to do, and it takes quite a lot of physical strength and confidence to snap those boards and be happy that they're going to come apart in a nice clean way. So if you do have access to a table saw and someone who's able to use it safely, and you've got multiple cuts to do, this will be a much easier way of doing the job, but it is possible to do it just with a knife. First things first, we need to prepare our subfloor. Now, the golden rule with flooring is you need a really nice flat surface to lay onto. Depending on your particular job, what you need to do here is going to vary. It may be that you need to put down a levelling compound to get that flat surface. In our case, we've ripped out the old bathroom and we're putting in a new one. So we took the tiles out and we actually took the floor out as well because it was so uneven. It would have been such a big job to get it flat. So we've just put this plywood down instead. We've just screwed that down and that gives us our nice surface. But don't forget as well to hoover and actually get rid of all those little bits of debris as well. Next step, this is best practice. I'm not sure everyone does this, but you should technically leave your planks in the room that you're going to lay them in for 24 hours before you start actually laying them. It's just a little bit of welfare for your planks to make sure they get used to the space. They call it climatizing, don't they, before you get going. So step 4 is to install underlayment if necessary. Now, depending on your vinyl plank type, you may need to lay down some underlayment. This helps with soundproofing and adds a cushion underfoot. You simply roll it out and cut it to fit snugly, ensuring the seams are taped together. The product we're using, however, doesn't actually need underlay. It's from a company called Abacus. I'll pop a link down below. It's superior quality to standard luxury vinyl tile because it's got a cushioned back and thicker wear layer, so it will technically last longer. That said, one of the great things about vinyl plank flooring is because you don't stick it down, you can actually easily lift planks and replace them in the future if they become damaged or worn when you need to. Now, quick word about waterproofness. This is waterproof in the sense that if you get water on it, it's not going to penetrate it, it's not going to go through it or anything. But if you've got kids that are quite enthusiastic with their water use, then train them not to flood the bathroom because it's not going to be able to handle that. Right, before you start actually laying your planks, a couple of questions people have. One is which way should you lay them, this way or that way? In this case, a lot of people often go with the longest wall, so you can line them up against the longest wall. We actually used to have floorboards here, so we're lining up with the floorboards, and that is also in line with the longest wall, so that works fine. The other thing you need to do before you lay a single plank is roughly work out how they're going to fit into the space, because if you don't, you can end up with like a silly little slither at the end, which isn't going to look good, in which case you'll need to adjust where you start and the size you start with. So just roughly work out what you've got and then you can move ahead. So you might need to do some work to prepare the area where you're laying your planks. For example, we decided to trim the bottom of the door lining to ensure the planks slot nicely underneath, which gives us a better finish than if they butt up against the wall. It's also important to make sure that there's enough space so that when you slide them under the door, there's some additional space, which is called an expansion gap, because the boards will expand and contract depending on the heat. And if there's not enough space, they might warp, which is a classic flooring problem that you want to avoid. Now, don't skip on this cleaning bit, really important, because even the tiniest little speck stuck between the grooves of the flooring will stop it going together and make it a horrible day's work. Here I'm test fitting a piece that we've pre-cut just to make sure it slides under the door threshold and doesn't foul on anything and remains square. Once you've got your area prepared, the success of your job comes down to cutting and measuring. Okay, so now we're talking about cutting the planks, and you might wonder why we're doing that, when actually these planks fit almost perfectly in the space that we've got. Well, we wouldn't just line them all up in a row, because that would look weird. We need it to look more natural, so we want to stagger them. So that means we're actually going to have to create extra work for ourselves and choose some spots at which to cut them. Now, we don't want a cut across the door as you walk in. We want a nice long plank as you walk in there. So we're going to do the cuts to either end. Now, in terms of cutting a bit off the end, the rule is that you don't want to go any less than this width here. And then you need to be really careful when you make the cuts as well. A mistake that a lot of people make is the whole way that these planks fit together is a tongue and groove system. So they slot in together, and that's whether or not you're slotting them lengthways together or you're slotting those cut pieces together. So when you're going to make your cut to match your planks up, make sure that you've just taken a quick look so that you cut the right end of your plank so that it slots in. So if you've got a tongue here, which we have, that's where you've got a bit sticking out on top, you're going to need a groove, which is the bit where it sticks out underneath, to slot in. So you're going to need to make sure that's where you've cut it. And then you can see how those pieces slot perfectly together. If you cut the wrong end, then you're going to end up with a piece that just butts against the other bit, doesn't slot into place, and it's probably going to actually just come out of place altogether. So we know that we need a piece that's 2, 3, 5 long to fit in here. We've got this turned around the right way so that we've got our nice groove that's going to fit under the tongue there. And we just need to make sure that we measure from the top of the plank and don't measure from the bottom of the groove. So this is where our square comes in, so we can just get a nice straight edge along here. As I said earlier, once you've measured your cut point, you can either score and snap your boards or cut them with a table saw. So if you are snapping the board, then once you've snapped the board, you will then need to turn it over and just cut this bottom piece separately with a knife, because that won't break when you snap the board. So if you just gently run your knife along there. You might have some funny shapes to find, such as a door liner or basin pedestal, and you may need to fit your planks around these. So this is where a shape finder is a complete lifesaver, because it helps you define your shape and then draw it on the board, which is a whole lot easier than trying to work it out with a tape measure, I promise you. Before I show you laying the floor, what you need to keep in mind when you're laying your planks is that you want to be 100% sure that your planks are slotted together. If they are slotted together, there will be no gap, and a click noise tends to occur when you push them together, and they will be flush to the floor. So the golden rule is take your time and don't move on to your next plank until you're completely confident that the plank is fitted. If there's even a tiny bit of grit or dirt, it can stop the planks slotting together properly, and you can then end up with a bit of a bounce or a part where dirt or water can then get into the floor. Sometimes it's actually easier to join two planks together before you try and lay them than trying to jiggle them into place when they're on the floor. Sometimes you will also need to put a bit of force into getting them into position. You can even kneel on one and then pull the other one into it if this works better. As ever, it's the small details that make the big difference. Idea of a really easy DIY floor you can do in your bathroom or anywhere else in your home. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And of course, if you've got any comments, tips of your own to share, then do pop them in the comments down below. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.